आपके वरदानों में पल रहे हैं हम बाबा। साकार में जो कहा हो रहा साकार है। साकार में जो कहा हो रहा साकार है। मुस्कुराता आपके सपनों का संसार है। दीप बन आशाओं के जल रहे हैं हम बाबा। दीप बन आशाओं के जल रहे हैं हम बाबा। हाथ देकर हाथ में चल रहे हैं हम बाबा। आपके वरदानों में पल रहे हैं हम बाबा। आपके वरदानों में पल रहे हैं हम बाबा।
Om Shanti. We welcome Jayanti Didi with one hand wave. We all are so happy to see Jayanti Didi, and we are also very thankful for being here. We all know that how busy you are, and for the past few days you have been traveling extensively in India and doing lots and lots of service, and you have given this valuable time for all of us. So thanks once again, and Jayanti Didi will be revising yesterday's Avyakt Murli with all of us. Thank you.
Om Shanti. Each Avyakt Murli that we hear, we feel Baba's explained everything and there's nothing more that needs to be explained. And yet, of course, then there's another treasure and another treasure and another treasure. And so the ocean truly, truly has given us all the treasures. And so this time, Baba was looking at the stars of fortune on our forehead and three aspects of fortune: the birthplace, relationships, and also the attainments. And I don't know very much about astrology, but I think that all these factors are taken into consideration. And of course, we take birth at the highest omens and the highest place in Sangam Yuga. And our relationships are with the one who is the highest of all. And the attainments are also the highest. They last us not just for half a kalpa, but through the whole kalpa. And so Baba just reminding us of all of these things. And so, a checkpoint. Do I feel how fortunate I am? Or is it that sometimes my intoxication is high and sometimes it's reduced? And when it reduces, then do I need help from others to be able to be uplifted again? Or am I able to just emerge the different aspects that Baba has been teaching us so that I'm able to experience that high level of intoxication? And so it's connected very much with the subject of who am I? And so the subject of identity, of my own state of self-respect, is something that Baba often takes up, because it's a subject that we tend to rise up with and then fall down again. And so this time, Baba taking us very slowly through each of the different stages. The stage of the father, the one who gives us an inheritance. And somebody's asked a question, well, I don't experience so much of the father because I'm not really into the subject of inheritance. And I remember when I'd first gone to Russia, and at that time everything was very strictly communist, and there was no question of any inheritance. People didn't have personal property, literally. And so when we'd raised this question about parent and inheritance, it made no sense to them. It wasn't relevant. And I thought to myself, it's very sad that they don't have this special bond with their parent. Yes, the bond of love is there, the upbringing, the sustenance is there, but within the general pattern of human life, whatever a parent has, then the child knows that it's for him, because at some point the parent will fly away, and where does everything go? And of course in Russia everything goes to the government at that time. Things have changed dramatically in that land, of course. But it was my first glimpse into that consciousness in which people feel, well, what's the point of inheritance there? And they don't have that awareness. And so today, again, reading a question that somebody has posed, I was thinking that it's very important to think about how much Baba has already given me, and that also is my inheritance, in the sense that if it wasn't for my parent, what would I have? Who would sustain me? Who would take care of me? I would be an orphan, I would be stranded. But because I have a parent, there's somebody who's going to take care of me and look after me. So even if I'm not interested in the inheritance of Satyug, just what Baba has given me today is so precious and valuable. And I think about the love that Baba has given, the warmth and security Baba gives us, the safety that Baba gives us, the qualities that Baba gives us. Well, call it inheritance, or if you don't like that word, forget it. But it's a huge amount of attainment that we have right here and now, even without thinking about the future on any level. And so wherever I go, I know that Baba can be with me. Whatever I do, if I'm holding the hand of Srimad, Baba's protecting me, taking care of me. Who's had that experience that they've gone to strange places that they've never heard of or ever been to before, and yet Baba looks after them? Exactly, many of you. When I went to my first international conference, I was the only BK there, and it was actually, today communism keeps coming up, but this was in 1975, and it was still very much communism in East Germany. And there was a women's conference there, and India, Brahma Kumaris was already quite known, and they'd been invited. And in those days, to think about sending somebody from India to Germany for a conference for 4 days, and there was no center, of course, there. It didn't make sense. And so they asked Dadi Janki to send me to Berlin, which was just down the road. So that was easy. And there was not a single person I knew, literally. And everybody seemed to be very, very high in their professions. I was part of the Indian delegation, so there was a woman who was a judge. There were other people, very high-level professionals. And I thought, what am I doing here? And then I had to remind myself, well, Baba sent me here. And so then just maintaining that inner state of dignity and self-respect, and lovely contacts were made, very good friends were made, and service happened. But that then laid the foundation for many other things later, going to, again, a country, literally the other side of the world, Guyana. Now we know where Guyana is because the Brahman map has shown us a very powerful family there. But at that time, when I hadn't even understood where is Guyana and who lives in Guyana, so I knew one person, the person who had invited me, and it was like 9-10 hours journey, flight from London, so it's really the other end of the world. But again, Baba arranged everything so beautifully. So truly, the inheritance we get from our Father now is the inheritance of that safety and care and protection, but also great happiness. Just remember Baba, and the soul's able to fly up above, and there's happiness. So definitely a huge inheritance now, but also for the future, for those of us who know that Satyuga is coming. Well, how could we go to Satyug if it wasn't for Baba training us, teaching us? There was a lovely SarovarMurli in which Baba spoke about, I think it was a few days ago, that he's come to create Satyug. But before Satyug can come, he has to make his children worthy of being in Satyug. So again, how could I go to a world where there's infinite peace and happiness and purity and truth and all the things that our hearts long for if it wasn't for Baba? Baba creates Satyug but prepares us and makes us worthy to be in that world. So truly, just think about God and all the things that God gives you as a result of you being His child. And the Supreme Teacher, and this lovely expression that Baba used, that teachings are always considered to be a source of income. And never mind income, also status, position. But what is the highest position that a person can attain even in today's world? It would be to be part of a royal family. And I don't think anybody would have a question about that. And of course, yes, at the end of Kali Yuga, royalty isn't always as it should be. But still, the royalty we all witnessed when it was Queen Elizabeth's funeral, that was something that was quite incredible. Her dignity was being spoken of, her love for people, and the way people loved her. It was stunning to see the expression of love that people had for this one individual. And the dignity with which everything happened, the precision, the accuracy, everything flowing seamlessly. And I thought to myself, if this is royalty at the end of Kali Yuga, can you imagine what royalty must be like in Satyug? And of course, Satyug is whenever it comes. But today, Baba reminded us that the royalty and the dignity that we have is when we're masters of our physical senses and masters of our inner faculties, Swaraj, self-sovereigns. I remember when we started Call of Time, there was an author who'd been invited by people who knew what was happening in the world out there, and he'd written a book about self-sovereign. And I asked them, because I don't often get a chance to read books, and certainly I hadn't read this one. And his name was Charles Handy. I don't know whether he's still famous or not famous anymore, but at that time he was quite famous. This is at the end of the 90s. And they told me that the book was very simple, in the sense that where there's a lot of people who now work for multinationals, multinational corporations, and the corporation tells you, okay, you finish your work here, and now we're going to send you from America to Africa, or you're in Africa and they tell you, we're going to send you now to Asia, and they make you get ready within a week. They don't even give you a month's notice, but we want to have you go from here to there, to there, to there. And they have their own reasons, but of course it brings much upheaval to children. Their schooling, their education, their home life, everything. And so more and more people at that point were wanting to be able to determine the future of their life themselves. And so the question was how to be a self-sovereign. And so they were just talking about that. And the whole book was about how to take control of your own life and your own destiny. And of course, being in a job is one thing. But here's Baba showing us how we can design our own destiny for the whole cycle. And so, am I going to be a slave to my tongue? I know something's not good for my health, but as soon as I see it, I really, really want to take it. I really feel I must have this. I know it's not good for my health, but I can't restrain myself. Or cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, worse things, all the time. And here's Baba just giving me enough power to be able to be soul conscious and say, I don't need any of those things. I am the master of my own life. And I can be the master instead of a slave. Early days in London, and I remember a woman coming, and when she first came, she said that does she have to stop smoking before she can meditate? And I said, no, you meditate first, and then that'll give you the power to stop smoking. And she didn't comment on anything after that. She just took the course. And then after about 5 days, not even the full course, after 5 days, she came with a big beaming smile for the next lesson. And she said, I've thrown away my last pack of cigarettes. I said, congratulations. And she said, you don't know what a big achievement this is for me. And I used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day, 40. And it was money going in smoke, literally. But also, I knew it was damaging for my health, but I couldn't do anything about it. And this morning, I looked at the packet and I asked myself the question, who's more powerful, you or me? And I decided I was more powerful, and I threw away the pack. And so this is a very external thing, but you can see how at the end of Kali Yuga, people have lost power to be able, they don't have enough power to be able to manage their own physical senses and their own life. And so to be a sovereign of all my senses, what are my eyes seeing? Do I linger on things that are not useful? What are my ears listening to? What am I thinking about? That's deeper. but first the physical senses and then the inner senses. I look at the statistics of mental issues now, health issues, and never mind the pandemic that we've just been through. Bigger than that pandemic is the pandemic of mental issues, mental ill health. And who knows what to do anything about it? The circumstances, the situations in life are such that it's difficult to give help. And here's Baba telling me, your each and every thought is valuable. Your each and every moment is valuable. And so, can I use my mind in the right way? If I connect with Baba, Baba gives me enough power to be able to do that. And so Baba giving us this beautiful title of being self-sovereigns. And so through study, through Baba's knowledge, Baba's teachings, the highest position that anybody can ever attain. And that too, not just for one birth, 2 births, 3 births, but for half the cycle. That state of sovereignty, and maybe even further down into the Copper Age, Brahma Baba, and we are following in Baba's footsteps. We know that Baba was a sovereign, not just in the Golden and Silver Age, but even in the Copper Age. The king who built the Somnath temple, the big one, King Vikramaditya, the one who conquered all sin. So, yes, he's lost one of his crowns, but yet he's still a king, an emperor. In fact, not even just a king, but a whole empire. And this person's a historical figure. It's not just a name in legends, but it's actually a person who existed. This emperor whose kingdom, empire existed over Asia and the Middle East, huge distances. And so if we had that much sovereignty in the Copper Age, again, just imagine what was Satyug like. But today, to be the master of my own mind, now that is victory. To be the master over my feelings, now that is something that people would love to be able to have. And Baba teaches us how to do all of that. And then the Satguru. And the Satguru teaching us the highest direction, Srimad, the elevated instructions that can make us the highest amongst humans. And Baba alerting us to the fact that we recognize that Srimad is important, but sometimes we forget. And in that moment, when I forget and I come into body consciousness, then it's at that moment that my mind starts playing mischief. And instead of obeying Baba's directions according to the way that he teaches us, I begin to interpret it in a way that's comfortable for me, in a way that I want, and I take advantage of what Baba is saying and I twist it in a specific way. And so my mind's used to playing tricks. And so it's playing tricks now and saying, well, even if it's not 4 o'clock, if it's 4:15, what's the difference? It's okay. So Manmat, we adjust Srimad and say, well, that's all right also. So different things happen, but Manmat comes in. And Parmat, sometimes Baba talks about Parmat as even being what we study in the scriptures. And I'm sure all of you have given up studying the scriptures a long time ago. But yet, some people, even when they come to Baba, yet there are certain things in scriptures that they'll feel, well, I have to do this, otherwise it won't be right. But more than the scriptures is the influence of people, and where there becomes a connection with any one individual, whoever it may be, It may be a Brahmin friend, it may be a non-Brahmin friend, it may be my doctor, it may be my lawyer, it can be anybody, a relative of mine. And whatever they're going to say, I have to understand that they're going to speak from a human perspective. And what God is telling me is from a divine perspective, God's perspective. Humans will always have a limited awareness of what's going on. If you were to ask a person today, do you want to go and spend 2 weeks on top of a mountain in Abu? They'd say, I've got so many other things to do, I don't want to do that. Or even where somebody begins to appreciate a little bit of meditation, a little bit of solitude, they say, 2 weeks? What am I going to do there for 2 weeks? So you can see that human perspectives are very different to Brahman perspectives. But even within Brahman perspectives, each one has a different level of understanding. Each one has a different level of effort, as Baba reminded us. And so I have to be very careful. Am I being influenced by anyone in the Brahmin family or outside the Brahmin family? And if I allow myself to be influenced, I'm going to move away from Srimad. And if I've moved away from God's instructions, I lose God's protection. That's the issue. If I want God's protection, I have to stay under that canopy. I move out of that canopy because I've let go of Baba's hand, because I've given importance to human instructions rather than God's instructions. Then I've lost that protection and I'm going to have to struggle to come back again to it. And so Srimad is absolutely, absolutely vital without mixing it up with anything else at all. And then Baba reminding us that Baba wants to take all his children back home with himself, but we have to be ready. And not just ready, but ever ready. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's not just a phrase for an individual, and maybe suddenly there's a heart attack, maybe suddenly something goes wrong. But when the pandemic for Corona arrived, it caught the whole world by surprise. December, we're hearing about it in China, and we're thinking, well, let me put it personally. When I first heard about it, I thought, well, that's in China. And then in February, I remember we were in Madhuban, and it was the national coordinators and the center coordinators. And within that gathering, it was end of February, there was a sister from Italy, and she was sharing with us very strange news. She was saying that the government has shut down classes. There's no more gatherings. We're not allowed to have classes anymore in Italy. And we were in regional groups, so I don't know what was happening within the Asia group, but certainly within the European group, everybody was shocked. What happened? And still, end of February, and I'm not thinking that 2 weeks later, India is going to have lockdown or that England is going to have lockdown. So literally, even though it crept up slowly, but when it finally hit, it was sudden. And of course then we all had our own experiences of what happened in those 2 years. But my point that suddenly can be anything, anytime at this moment now. You cannot rely on anything, not even governments, especially governments. In Britain we had 3 prime ministers in the space of 3 months. Can you imagine it? Upheaval, upheaval, upheaval. And the country lost over a few £billion within the space of 3 days. Suddenly. And so when Baba says, are you ready? Are you ever ready? If Baba were to say, come, am I going to give Baba an excuse? Baba, hold on, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I need to do this. No. When Baba calls, I say yes and I can fly. And so Baba also spoke about how some children say, Baba, we know that we are the Master Almighty Authority, but somehow we forget and we are not able to invoke the power that we need to at the time we need it. And Baba giving a very, very clear answer to that question, why? And Baba saying very simply, it's because you're not seated on your throne of authority. If you're set on your seat of inner authority, then how is it that the powers don't obey you? Sit on your seat and all the powers will be available for you. But if you're not sat on your seat, then there is no authority. And then you can be saying, well, why not, why not, why not? But it's not going to work. It's if you come back to your seat of authority, in your seat of self-respect. And Baba told us that Baba gives you many, many different aspects of self-respect. And so sit on those seats, experiment with it, and be in that consciousness, and then whatever power you want is going to be available for you. And Baba reminding us that time and thoughts are your most important treasures. And so, are you aware of the value of each moment in Sangam Yug? Each moment in Sangam Yug can earn you a fortune. And each moment in Sangam Yug can also mean a loss. It's equivalent, both. I can't say to Baba, I want to earn a fortune in a second, but I don't want to experience loss in a second. Both have to be equivalent. And so when I'm in the right consciousness, then yes, I have all the treasures from Baba. The child is the master of all treasures. And if I forget, then of course I lose out on that and I don't experience that. And so Baba reminding us of these different things. Baba telling us that Baba's visiting all of us in the centres and everywhere, seeing wherever his children are at Amrit Vela and seeing what stage they're in. And Baba wants us to be the ones who have the experience of light and might all the time. And the power of Amrit Vela, that is the time that you can send out those vibrations out into the world. Any other time, and of course look at it from a very basic level, through the day, there's so many different things going on, so many mixed vibrations, so much going on here and there and everywhere. But Amrit Vela, even the thieves have gone to sleep by 3 o'clock properly. And so most of the corrupt things that are going on in the world have quietened down by then. And people, even young people who stay up till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, usually by 4 o'clock they've gone to sleep. And I've heard that young people stay up through the night having chats on their chat boxes and all sorts of things. But by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, even they're asleep. And so that's the time when the world is quiet. That's the time when the world is receptive to receiving vibrations. And so Baba's saying that, yes, this is that time when you can send out those vibrations and everybody will be able to benefit from those vibrations if you do it at that time. And then Baba also reminding us, make a personal program for yourself. So often what happens is that we wait for the Centinavasis to make a program, we wait for the seniors to decide what's going to happen, and they have to think about 50 other things, and so maybe it's a bit slow in happening. Or maybe they have to listen to somebody who says, no, it shouldn't be like this, it should be like this. They have many things to deal with. I'm sure you're aware of it. But if you make a program for yourself personally, easy. Nobody's going to bother you with that. And especially when it's a program for your own mind, your own inner world. Nobody's going to be able to interfere with that on any level. And so a program for yourself in terms of keeping the mind engaged in many different ways. Baba said, do mansa seva, do a lot of churning, but it's not just early morning that you churn. Get yourself into that mode of churning and let it carry on through the day. Another question that's been asked in a list that I was presented with was, when I'm doing karma yoga or when I'm engaged in other things, how are we supposed to think about the Murli and churn on the Murli? Well, just take up today's Murli as an example. What touched me very strongly, and of course every Murli has many things, but one of the things that touched me most strongly was when Baba spoke about creating a fort. And if you create a fort of yoga and purity, then Brahmins will stay safe and no one will have the thought of leaving. And I was thinking about how challenging it is to create a Brahmin. And I'm sure many of you are instruments and you know how to get somebody from a lecture into Baba's house, well, there's 100 people at a lecture. How many make it to Baba's house? 1, 2, 3? Maybe there's a big program you do. And how many come for the course? 4, 5? So it's not so easy even bringing souls to Baba's house. And once they're in Baba's house, they come the first day, they love the idea that Baba's teaching us about, the soul and all the details. Second day, they're hearing about God and maybe it's answering some of their questions. Maybe it's creating more questions. Then you get to karma philosophy and you begin to see them, instead of the 50 group that you started with, now it's about 30 people. And by the time you get to the cycle, well, after the cycle, you're left with maybe 10 people. And so even to get somebody to the stage of coming to the Murli, it's hard work. And not just hard work on your part, but Baba has to keep giving the soul something fresh, something new every day to be stimulating them to keep coming. And once they've started the Murli, even then, to keep them engaged and interested and attend and become a Brahmin through the Murli every day. Now, I've just described the process of part of the process, the external things, the inner things, of course, that's even more subtle. But Baba's working hard, we are working hard to create Brahmins. And then if we allow a Brahmin to slip away because we haven't given it enough attention to them, then that's a shame. It's sad. And so the attention we need to give, and again, it's not just giving them a chat every day, but filling them with power. And the way to fill souls with power is not by sitting and giving them drishti, but to create a powerful atmosphere. If there's a powerful atmosphere that's created, then that keeps them close to Baba. And so Baba reminding us that it's something that's very important. And so through the day, this kept coming into my head again and again. We have to create an atmosphere in which nobody has the thought of leaving Baba for any reason whatsoever. And so, if there's anything that touches you from the Murli, churn on it, reflect on it, apply it, practice it, and see what the experience of all that is about and where it takes you. And so, twice Baba mentioned, use your mind in a very creative, positive, pure direction, so that it doesn't have space to go here and there and wasteful things, waste of time, waste of thoughts. It's too precious. My time is precious, my thoughts are precious, but if you're trying to fill a bucket and the tap is dripping slowly, 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 that's one thing. But if there's a leak, if there's a hole in the bucket, then that doesn't take long. Whatever you've collected, all of it goes very quickly. And so waste thoughts and wasting time is in that category. I've worked hard to connect with Baba, to take Baba's love, to take Baba's power, and then waste thoughts begin and whoosh, it goes out very, very fast. My hard-earned power goes down the drain, literally. And so to be very, very aware of what's happening in the mind and to use my mind as a tool that's going to bring me closer to God, and definitely not something that I ignore and I allow that energy to be lost. And so Baba said, one of the things that happens is that there's carelessness, lack of attention. And so if you're determined to achieve something, you do it, right? You were determined to come to Madhuban, and you made it happen, even though I'm sure there were a few challenges that came along the way. And so in anything in life, if you're determined about it, you make sure it happens. And so if I'm determined to be an intense effort maker, to really pay attention continually so that I keep moving forward, not one step forward and 2 steps back, or 10 steps forward and 9 steps back. It's going to take too long. I'm not going to be ready. And so now, as we see the conditions of the world, the state of the world, then very definitely there's a big, big incentive to stay focused, stay on track, and actually do what I need to do. So, attention and no tension. Again, Baba talking about Amrit Vela and saying that one of the other reasons why there isn't that power to keep that highest stage of light and might and share that with the world is because sometimes there's waste thoughts and sometimes there's tension. And if there's tension, you can't have good yoga. You can't have that connection with Baba. Waste thoughts and your mind is scattered here and there. No connection. And so both of these things, Baba said, don't be careless about it and say, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine at the end. Well, the end is now, and I have to make sure that I am ready. And so, very practical Murli from Baba, very loving, very powerful, and very practical. Things that we can actually apply immediately in our life. And so those are the best Murlis, where Baba's giving us tools to be able to do what we need to do to attain our angelic form, to attain that stage in which, yes, truly, I'm content that I've done my best. Otherwise, we've had the opportunity and we've let it slip through our fingers. We haven't made full use of it. but be with Baba and make full use of every opportunity that Brahma is offering. So I'm sure that here in Madhuban you've done that. Am I right? Yes? Good. Madhuban is a place to train the mind, to focus and concentrate, so that that is a gift you take away from Madhuban. And I'll just read the questions. The first question was actually about the Murli, and so I think I've answered that question, how to keep the mind busy with the Murli, even though we have many other things to attend to. Another question connected with this, in terms of how is keeping our mind busy connected with not becoming action conscious. If my mind is busy thinking about the things Baba's telling me, what is Srimad, what are pure elevated thoughts, then I'm going to be quite choosy about what I'm doing. Again, I'm not going to be wasting my time in things that are not necessary, but I'll use my time in actions that are necessary, are needed, but I'll keep my mind on that higher level. There are many tasks that we do through the day that don't require 100% attention. And so, yes, I'll give it the attention it needs, but more than that, there's attention in terms of quality of thinking. That's also going to connect with intention. If my thoughts are elevated and pure, my intentions before doing the action are going to be clean. If I'm not aware of what's going on in my mind, and my mind is just creating thoughts here and there, mixed intentions could very easily come in. We stay busy mentally in the office whole day. Does being busy in this way, can it be included in our timetable of being busy? No. What I'm doing on the external level in terms of my job, that's on this level. The busyness that Baba wants us to have is on this level. And so yes, when I've done my task and I can take a moment of silence before I begin my next task, in that moment of silence, can I instantly go inside and connect with Baba, and again have a very high level of consciousness. But I'm thinking about all my work, that's definitely here at this level. It's not on that level. Okay, I struggle with the relationship of father because I can't connect with the idea of inheritance. Well, I hope that person's experience some benefit from just thinking about what God gives us now. Most of us are experiencing settlement is speeding up no matter where we are based. Is it important to invest extra attention to make our stage stronger to face the settlement? Yes, definitely. Baba underlined it. And not just yesterday, but generally, the thing that Baba's been cautioning us about is that Sthiti se parasthiti par vijay. Your stage, Swasthiti, the inner stage of the self, is the power with which you're able to overcome whatever are the situations, the challenges, the difficulties, the settlements that are coming your way. And if you haven't created that elevated consciousness within yourself, you won't have the capacity to deal with situations. And so, yes, definitely, when Baba is saying intense effort maker, it means give yourself that time and attention to create a very elevated stage of consciousness that isn't shaken by anything. Where did the concept of omnipresence come from? Did we begin it in the Copper Age? is it a memory of our experience with Baba now? There are two things that happen in Sangam Yuga that have led to this concept coming up in the Copper Age, and it came from Brahmins, and then it was interpreted in however way. Firstly, it is where Baba says, where do I live? I live in the hearts of those who are Brahmins. And so, where is God? He is in your heart, 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 in each one's heart. And so definitely we would say God is omnipresent. And then the other thing that Baba's been telling us in recent times, each one's face and behavior should give others the feeling of God's presence. Now, your face is sparkling and it's reminding me of God. Your face is sparkling and your behavior is angelic. And so it's again reminding me of God's presence. And so if God is present here, here, and here, and here, and here, and here, here, you can see that, yes, definitely the concept of omnipresence begins in Sangam Yuga. Not even in the Copper Age, it begins in Sangam Yuga. And then there's the memory of that in the Copper Age also. Now, this is a very interesting question, but I haven't churned it too deeply because I don't think I can. If there are no snakes in the Golden Age, where do they come from in the Iron Age? Because they will need parent snakes to have babies. I don't know. And I'm not going to churn on it any further. When it's time for it to happen, it'll be happening. And so I don't think I'm going to give it any more attention. And if somebody does want to, well, that's fine. It's your choice. But I don't think it's useful churning things like that. There are more beautiful things to churn on. And yes, enough for me to know that there's nothing that causes pain or sorrow or any problem at all in the Golden Age. Why? Because we have served the elements. We have served all the different species now in Sangam Yuga. And so that's going to be the impact that we carry with ourselves to Satyug, where the elements serve us, where all the species live together in harmony, and they also are there to be with us as companions, not to cause any harm or injury to anyone. I'll close with a lovely thing that's happening in a very practical way. Some of you know Kutch. Kutch is a desert area in Gujarat. And, I've seen photographs of before and after. And there's a small group of Brahmins who's actually been doing service in Kutch. And they started off with that idea of yogic agriculture. And they had beautiful results in an area which is desert. And not only is there beautiful results in terms of food production, which of course is very important and was a starting point of their work, but they've kept statistics of all the biodiversity that's come up in that area, the flora, the fauna, the butterflies, everything that's come back through the work that's been done by a handful of Brahmins, actually just a couple of them, but they've been able to inspire the villagers to help and support in this. And they're living the life in a basic, simple way as the villagers are living. And so they're part of the community. And so they've been doing this work. So it's amazing to know of some of the things that are going on in Bharat. But really, yogic agriculture and how we're taking care of nature, giving respect to nature, giving love to nature, taking care of it, it's that love and care. And we might not be able to go off to Kutch and do the same thing there, but wherever it is we are, just to give good vibrations to nature every single day, and nature will be there to help you, support you, and care for you. There was a lovely expression that came in the message when Dadi Kumarka passed away. And Dadi Gulzar, of course, was the one who brought back a very detailed message about that whole scenario. And so Dadi Gulzar said that when she went to the subtle region, the advance party was waiting to meet Dadi. They had been invoking her, but also the elements were there waiting to greet her, because she was the one who had conquered the elements through her yoga power. So when there was pain, she was able to go up above, beyond the pain. And so just imagine all the elements waiting to receive you and greet you when you leave. So that's the stage of our relationship with nature and all the species. They're not going to harm us. They're not going to trouble us on any level. Om Shanti.
Thank you very much, Jayanti Didi, for such a deep explanation of the today's Murli and deep insights. Thank you very much. We will meditate for half an hour now until 7:30.
बाबा